Are you hosting a class related to hair, lashes, or maybe even makeup and wondering how to create a flyer for your class in Canva? Today I'm going to break down everything you need to know to design this class flyer in Canva and get your flyer in front of paying customers. You'll walk away knowing exactly how to design a class flyer in Canva and how to post it on social media for your viewers to see. So let's get started with step number 1, which is what I consider to be the foundation of designing any flyer, and that's creating a flyer with the correct dimensions. For this flyer design, we'll be using a 4x5 Instagram post that's 1080 by 1350. So now that we have the proper dimensions, let's go ahead and start with the title. The font that I'll be using is on the screen, so you can pause the video if you need to. And this is a Canva font, so all you have to do is type in the name and it'll pop up. So add your text box, and then I'm going to change mine to training class. Now place the title at the top of the flyer, but leave some space because we still have to add to the top. And now we're going to lower the letter spacing to about -55 so that the letters are just a bit closer together. Now it's time to add some shapes to the flyer. So we're going to go to the Elements tab and add a square to the flyer, and we're going to place it right above the title. And you want to stretch that square out until it touches both ends of the frame. So not to the edge of the page, but very close to it. Then make sure it's centered in the middle of the page. You always want to make sure everything is aligned. And then I'm going to just change the color to black. And now this is where you're going to put the rest of your class name. So if you came up with a cute name for your class, or if you have more to it than just training class, then this is where you would put it. So let's add another text box to the page, and I'm going to change the text to hands-on curling and layering. So that way when you read it all together, it says hands-on curling and layering training class. And then lower the font size to about 30 and then just place it right above the original text box that we created. Now because that rectangle is black and we want to be able to see our text, let's change the color to white. And 30 was too big for my liking, so I made the font just a little bit smaller. And I don't want this text box to be bold, so I'm going to remove that as well. So far, everything looks good. We have the entire title on our flyer. Now I'm just going to increase the letter spacing for this text box as well to about 460. So now let's add the rest of the text boxes to our flyer. I like to keep the fonts consistent throughout my flyers, so I'm just going to duplicate the original title text box that I created. This text box is going to say The Official, and you want to make sure to capitalize the T and the O. Then place it at the very top of the flyer right above the black rectangle. Then I'm going to lower the text size to about 60 so that it fits perfectly in that empty space at the top of the flyer. So now at this point, even though we already have the title of our flyer, we're just building onto it. So now when you read it, it says The Official Hands-On Curling and Layering Training Class. Now this next step is probably my favorite part of the flyer. We're going to change the font of the text box that says The Official to a font called Old English. Now this is not a Canva font. This is a font that you'll have to download from dafont.com. Now if you want me to make a separate video on how to download fonts from dafont.com and upload them to Canva, I want you to pause this video and comment upload fonts below. This helps me out because it lets me know what kind of content you guys want to see from me. So back to the flyer. Once you upload that Old English font and change your text box, this is what you're left with. So now it's time to add some more shapes to the flyer. And in order to really give it that newspaper look, we're going to add 5 stars to the top left corner. So just go to the Elements tab and type in 5 stars. I did not feel like going through the entire list of stars, so I just went with the first ones that I seen. And the ones that I chose, I have to change each color to black. So depending on which stars you pick, make the necessary adjustments and then make them small enough to fit in the top left corner. And we're almost done with the top. We're just building onto it. I know it seems like we're just adding small details, but those small details really come together in the end. So now that you have the stars in the top left corner, we're going to add a page number to the top right corner because like I said, we want it to really have that newspaper look to it. And remember I said we want to keep our fonts consistent throughout the flyers, so we're just going to duplicate the text box that we put inside the black rectangle. And because that text box is white and the background is also white, we need to change that text box to black. You can use whatever number you like. I just came up with a random number and used 239, but you want to make sure to change the letter spacing back to 0. Then make the text bold and fit it perfectly into the top right corner until it aligns with the stars on the left. And there you have it. We are finally done with the top part of the flyer. And it already looks so good. Now the next step is to add the location of your class to the flyer. Now, even if you don't want to add the exact location, you can add a city, you can even add a state. So now we need to add a location icon. So just go to the Elements tab again and then type in location icon. Now for the stars, I was not that specific, but for the location icon, I kind of was specific. I went with the location icon that didn't have the circle at the bottom. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. So for now, you want to center the location icon in the middle of the flyer, directly under the training class text box. Now add another text box and add the location of your class. I just went with Los Angeles, California, 90210. And you want to put this text box on the left side of the location icon and then lower the font size to 18. For this text box, we'll be using a different Canva font, which I'll be putting on the screen, so feel free to pause the video if needed. So just type it into the search engine and it'll come up. Then increase the letter spacing to about 85. And the bold is on for this text box, but I'm going to actually turn it off. Now we need to add a horizontal line on the right side of the location icon. So go to the Elements tab, go to Shapes, and then choose the solid line. The width of the line should start at the location icon and extend all the way to the black rectangle. Because remember, you want everything to be aligned and precise. Once the line is as precise as possible, make sure that the stroke weight is set to 1 because you want the line to be as thin as possible. Now let's duplicate the line that we just created, but we're going to make it a vertical line in the middle of the flyer. So remember how I said I was a little picky about the location icon that I picked? And I didn't want it to have the circle at the bottom, and this is the reason why, because I wanted to have that sharp point, because I wanted to match or like touch exactly the end of the vertical line. So now at this point, this is what your flyer should look like, and we're still looking pretty good. So now we have a lot of text to add to the flyer. And remember, we want to keep our fonts consistent. So we're going to just duplicate the training class text box that we created, and we're going to lower the font size. I lowered mine down to about 45, and I changed the text to say meet your instructor. And because this is a class, it is going to be taught by someone, this is a great opportunity to just provide maybe a little background information about yourself or maybe even about the class. Because this text box will consist of 2 lines, the letter spacing and the line spacing here is very important. So the letter spacing is set to -55 and the line spacing is set to 0.85. Also, make sure that this text box is aligned to the left. You don't want it centered or to the right. Now we're just going to duplicate this text box, but we're going to put it on the right side of the line. Because remember, we want to stay consistent. I'm telling you, this is the key to a beautiful flyer. This text box is going to say course will cover, and this will just include all of the topics that your class will cover. Now we're going to change the background color of the flyer. We're going to change it to a light gray. That way it matches the color of a newspaper. And I'm going to put the hex code on the screen. That way you can just type it in. Now duplicate the text box that you created for the location of your class and place it directly under course will cover. Now I created this text box off screen because it would take entirely too long to do it on screen, so you can pause the video and take the next few moments to fill this space in with all the topics that your course will cover. Be sure that the letter spacing for this text box is set at 33 and the line spacing is set at 1.4. And then also make sure that the text box doesn't go past the black rectangle that we put at the top of the flyer. And the font size that I used is 15. And lastly, just make sure that this text box is aligned to the left as well and that you also have bullet points. Once you have all your topics written out, this is what you should have. Now you want to go ahead and duplicate the training class text box again. This text box is going directly under meet your instructor, so change the text to whatever the instructor's name is. For the purpose of this flyer, I came up with the name Leilani. Place this text box under meet your instructor and make sure it's aligned to the left. Now let's change the font. This time we're going to use another Canva font. So all you have to do is search it in the search bar. And what I love most about this font is that it's already bold, so we don't have to change it or do anything to it. Then I changed the font size to 60, and that's about it for this part of the flyer. Now it's time to add the photo frames. So go to the Elements tab and add a square frame. Now when you position your frame on the flyer, you want to align it on the left side because we have to scoot everything over to the left anyways. Once your frame is positioned, start by moving your vertical line over to the left, then move your location over a bit, and then move the location icon over. And then scoot your horizontal line over too. Now we need to put 3 more frames on the right side of the flyer, so we're just going to duplicate this frame that we already created. And there you have it. In total, you should have 4 frames on your flyer. We only have a few more text boxes and rectangles to add, and then we are done. So go ahead and duplicate the rectangle that we originally created at the top of the flyer, and then align it with the frame that's on the left side of the flyer. Now duplicate this rectangle and put it directly underneath it, just a bit more to the left. Then duplicate it once more and put it directly under the frames on the right side of the flyer. Now we are still maintaining consistency throughout our fonts, so duplicate the text box that you created for the location of your class, and we're going to use this for majority of the rest of the flyer. Now if you're following along with me, then that text box was probably black, so make sure you change it to white, and you're just going to add your website or whatever information that you want to put at the bottom of the flyer. Most importantly, you want to make sure that it's a direct link or a page where your viewers can sign up for your class. So I already put a website. Now I'm just going to duplicate that text box and now put an Instagram. Now we're going to duplicate the text box that we put inside of the original black rectangle at the top of the flyer. Because this is a really important piece of information that we're putting right here, I want to use this font and because it's bold. So duplicate the text box and then change the letter spacing back to 0. And I'm going to change the text to say important course information. Then make the text box bold and italicize it. Now I'm going to duplicate this text box and then I'm going to put it on the left side of the flyer, right above the rectangle that we created. So remember I said whatever link you use, you want it to be a link that directs your viewers to be able to sign up for this class. So I'm going to change the text box to say register at, and then I'm going to change the color to black. And then remember underneath that is our Instagram name. So I'm going to duplicate that text box and just change the text to say follow us at. Now just align both of those text boxes to the left. Now adjust the letter spacing. And for this, there are no specific numbers because it just all depends on how many letters are in your website and how many letters are in your Instagram name. So kind of play around with the numbers until you get the right spacing. Now you just want to add the price of the class. And for this, you're going to duplicate the text box that we created for the instructor's name. The size of this text box is about 40, and I'm going to duplicate it because I need 2 text boxes. One text box is going to be the total investment for the course, and then the other text box is going to be the deposit for the course. I'm going to select both text boxes and make sure that they're aligned directly in the center of the black rectangle. Duplicate the text box we created for our website, change the color to black, and then lower the letter spacing back to 0. One text box will say investment, and then the other text box will say deposit. And from this point on, all we're doing is just duplicating the text boxes. And underneath the prices, I'm going to put the rest of the information about when the payments are due. Now we are completely done with the design, with adding the text, with everything on the flyer. The only thing that's left to do is to add our pictures. Now the secret to using these frames is making sure that you use the crop tool. This allows you to get the perfect position of your image. So add all your images to the frames, be sure to crop them all, and then once you're done uploading and cropping all of your pictures, this is what you should be left with. Now you know how to design a class flyer, so let me show you how to download the flyer to your device so that way you can upload it to your social media for all your viewers to see. So to save your class flyer, click the Save button in the top right corner and then click Download. For the file type, you want to make sure that you have PNG selected and then click Download. Wait just a few seconds and then you're going to click Save Image or Save to Device, whatever comes up for you. Then go into Facebook, Instagram, whatever social media account you want to upload it to, and you should be able to upload it straight from your photos. So if you're still unsure on how to design a class flyer in Canva, or you don't know how to upload your flyer to social media, just make sure you go back to these steps. This kind of marketing is going to take your class to the next level. If you want to learn how to create more eye-catching flyer designs, I have more tutorials breaking them all down, so make sure you check them out.